Hello and welcome to another episode of Intentionally Act Live. This is your host, Enrico Imanalo, and I am joined today by Team All Aces. Our episode today is about one of our core values, which is Playmakers. So to introduce everybody really quickly, I am joined, of course, by our CEO and founder, Dr. Esatia Martin, CEM, who co-hosts Intentionally Act Live with me. Uh, and before we jump in a little bit further, I'd like to introduce the rest of the team. So I'm joined by Chief of Strategy and Director of Project Management, Jennifer Fortune, Business Manager, Taylor Andre, Director of Partnerships, John Monahan III, Project Manager, Madeline Chisholm, Business and Project Coordinator, Stephen Walker, and Executive Assistant, Moses Collins III. So welcome everybody to the live stream. Thank you all for making time. Today we are actually supposed to have our regularly scheduled collective care, but this is actually our season 2 finale. So we wanted to get the whole team here to kind of close us out for the season. So to kind of jump into our questions, care time together, how are you doing for real, for real? And who would like to go first?
Well, I'll go first. That's why
Thank you,
I work with the virtual gold star that gets handed out at the end of the meetings. Good afternoon, everyone. It is Friday. I'm very excited that it's Friday. How am I doing? For real, for real? Well, for you all that have kids, everybody that's watching, I hit a milestone. I have a child that is officially hit double digits. So that means that I have a 10-year-old, which means that I'm still kind of on the cusp of like still being cool. Like he still says daddy, but he still is like, he's getting to that point where it's like, I don't really want to be bothered with you right now. Like, I need my space. It's a beautiful thing. Got a lot going on today. He is going to have a birthday party, which means in a few hours, I'm going to have a house full of little people. And like, I don't know how to feel about that. Like, I'm excited for him, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be this screaming kids and, high off all the sugar and this, all that good stuff. So I'm excited, but I'm low key stressed.
I can understand that. And yes, very happy birthday to Jaden and welcome to the double digits.
I will let him know. He's extremely excited.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. All right. So, Stephen, who are you passing it to?
I'm going to pass it to Dr. Martin. Only because I saw him.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. I am in the office, and we just finished the summer program. We also had a mobile vaccination site going right outside the office where the young people were. And so I am exhausted and excited to be here with all of you after 4 hours of being outside. 5 hours, including setup, of being outside with a bunch of teenagers. So happy to be here with you all. Looking forward to our topic today, Playmakers.
Sorry to jump in, but for those watching who don't know, we do have a summer program. And if you're curious about that, we will be posting some video of that to our YouTube channel. And we actually have some video from last year as well, if you'd like to check that out. And honestly, what these kids did is super impressive. So definitely worth checking out. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Dr. Martin, please.
No, thank you for that, Rico. Appreciate you adding that context. And that was it. I was going to pass it to someone, but I forgot we're not passing it. Are we passing it to people? Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So then I'm going to pass it to, who do I get to pick on? I'm going to pick on Jennifer Fortune, who just moved to Baltimore, Maryland from Boston.
Congratulations, Baltimore.
Yes. Yeah, Charm City, you know.
Oh, that was nice, Rico. I thought you were going to say congratulations to me.
And you too.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am coming to you from a new city. I am now situated in Baltimore. excited about this move that just happened in the past 4 days. So I am not exhausted, but a little tired. I am feeling excited about exploring my new environment. I'm also eager about the work that I have ahead of me and some client projects that are really up my alley of public health. So things are busy, they're moving, they're grooving on my end, but I am well. And just overall grateful for the place that I'm in. And I will pass it to Moses.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. How am I doing for real? Well, I actually just celebrated a birthday yesterday. So another revolution around the sun.
Happy birthday, Moses.
Thank you. Thank you. I had an amazing dinner with my wife last night, and my daughter got me an awesome Lego set. So life is great right now. Happy to see all of you guys today, and excited for the week.
Wait. You have to tell us which Lego set, though, Moses.
Okay, so she doesn't know yet. So they got me the Chevrolet Camaro set. It's an old Chevy. It's pretty awesome, but we're going to exchange it for the Star Wars Darth Vader helmet. So
Nice.
If you're gonna nerd out, you got to go full nerd.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to tell her that Daddy likes it, but so we'll figure that out. We'll take a little massaging.
Best of luck to you, Moses.
I'll let you. If I come back Monday and I still have the Camaro set, you'll know it didn't happen.
Has to extend you some grace.
Yes, please. And I will pass it to Maddie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Moses. I feel bad that I didn't know it was your birthday. Happy belated birthday. And you're a Leo. Good to know.
Thank you.
I'm doing well. I had an interesting week, an interesting and tiring week. And I am also looking forward to the weekend and relaxing and resting and then getting back into the groove of things. So, yeah. And I'm going to pass it to John.
Thank you, Maddie. So I am well also. I, as many of you know, but the audience doesn't, I dropped my kid off to boot camp on Monday. So he hasn't come home yet. So I think that's a good sign. He's joined the Marine Corps and made it through week 1 so far, which has caused me a lot of pride and anxiety as a father. I've got a daughter who's 3/4 of the way through the Pacific Crest Trail. So proud on both ends and stressed out. So, and I am, well, I got to go dive in the ocean this morning. So that always makes me happy.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to our weekend. My wife and I get to walk on the beach on occasion. So we're looking forward to maybe getting some sand in our toes and enjoying the Portsmouth and Rye Beach area. So, yeah. And Taylor, if you safely can tell us how you're doing, I'll pass it to you. And she's driving.
Ooh, I'm wondering if she's frozen.
It looks like it. So why don't I pass it back to you, Rico, for now?
Oh, well,
There she is.
You there, Taylor? Okay, it looks like we will have to come back to you. So while Taylor's kind of getting to a better service area, I think something that I'd like to do is kind of outline for our audience, or to highlight for our audience rather, the fact that part of our organizational culture involves something that we call collective care. And that also is kind of founded on, or, the way we start doing that is to really check in with each other. That's why we do check in with each other by saying, how are you doing for real, for real? And, I think that's important for us to work into the conversation today, because collective care is a value that all of our work is guided by. But we're here to talk about another value that also guides our work in conjunction with collective care, which is Playmakers. And, whenever Taylor is back, we'll definitely check in with her because to be completely transparent, Playmakers as a topic was actually Taylor's idea. So to get into our questions, what does Playmakers mean to all of you? And what are some concrete examples from your own experience with the team?
Maddie's trying to say something, Rico.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah.
You didn't
right.
check in.
I didn't check in. Yeah. Okay. So I should also be transparent about this. I often forget to check in myself. So thank you for holding me accountable. I am doing well. I spent some time with family last night in San Francisco. We went to check out some art and get a bite to eat. And I have to say it was really something that I really needed. Some people on the team already know that I got some really terrible news earlier in this week. And so it was just really great to be around some family to get that support and that affection, quite frankly. Being with my work family is something that also often uplifts me and kind of helps me to manage myself. And that is actually an example of collective care. So in general, I'm doing very well. Thank you for holding me accountable, Maddie. So to pivot back to our questions about Playmakers, right? So it's one of our core values. And what does Playmakers mean to you? And what are some concrete examples from your time with the team?
So can we start off with saying that what happened just now with Maddie, that was a playmaking move. Honestly, being able to hold team members accountable and having the courage to do so, because I do know in a lot of workspaces, you can be very hesitant to say, hey, you got to do this, or, you might be able to do this better, and come do it, as Dr. Martin says, do it from a place of love. Because sometimes you got to hear things you don't want to hear. So I just wanted to uplift that. But Playmakers for me is being able to be accountable in situations, but also being able to, if there's some slack, be able to pick it up, and also be aware if it is your own slack that you need to pick up, being able to do that without it being like an emotional tide, like being held back emotionally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for starting us off, Stephen. And also thank you for, modeling what it looks like to elevate one of your team members. And that is part of the All Aces thing very much. So really appreciate that. So kind of what Stephen was saying, if we're keeping that in mind, like what are some other thoughts that the team has or some examples?
So I think
So
for
I
me,
want.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Don.
Now I want you to go first, please.
So I was going to say, thinking about one element of what Stephen raised, the self-awareness piece. For me, being a playmaker does very much depend on being self-aware and knowing and understanding my extent of reach, right? So if I have a load of things to get through, knowing when I've reached my maximum capacity, and also being courageous enough and humble enough to ask for help when I need it. And I think on the client side, which I often see, is when we are aware of our extent of reach, or we are aware enough when our plates are full or overflowing, Although that can be a good thing, being able to be very transparent with our clients when extra is added to our plates, and being very clear about expectations and what's possible versus what is possible or feasible, right? So that at the end, we are all walking away happy and content with the work that was completed, or the work that is to be completed. So to sum up, I do think that self-awareness plays a big role in being a playmaker, and critical elements like humility and courage play a role in being able to ask your teammates for help when it's needed.
Yeah, thank you for adding that depth, Jennifer. I mean, so just to make sure that I'm getting everything, it's like, it seems simple, right? The concept, but it's actually something that's both internally facing and externally facing at the same time. It's something that's individual and collective. And, hopefully for the audience, it's kind of starting to become clear why we use this value to navigate complexity. Right? So we need complexity to navigate complexity. And sometimes we have to reduce it to something simple just so we can kind of start to internalize it. And John, I think you wanted to jump in, along with Jennifer, or, around the same time.
I did. I had a couple thoughts on what being a playmaker means to me, and it means a couple things. One, it means pitching in when someone needs you to lend a hand. That we're all busy, and that if you see a ball that could be dropped, make sure that you're there to catch it before it does. And the other thing, I guess I would say, it's also about knowing what your strengths are and being able to play to your strengths as a member of the team. And you asked for examples, and I can think of two, and I'm going to use Dr. Martin. I'm going to pick on her both times. And one is, I know, so when you're in a really good team and you're playing with people, you almost don't need to talk, right? You can almost be like, and they know what you need to do. So if we're in a meeting together and she says, I'm going to follow John's leadership, I know that means I really got to have my A game on, and that Dr. Martin is looking for me to take the reins here and guide us through, right? Like I know that she has literally just passed the ball to me, and that I need to be a playmaker in that moment. I will also say this, that I write a lot of proposals for our clients, and some of them are really complicated. And every once in a while, I get really overwhelmed because I'm like, I can't. This is like a Rubik's Cube for me, and I am not good at Rubik's Cubes. And Dr. Martin will often in those moments be like, you know what, I'll do this one for you, John. And she'll get it done probably in 10 minutes, where it would have taken me 10 hours. Not 10 minutes. Well, in my mind, I imagine you taking 10 minutes. But those are like a couple examples, like Dr. Martin is playing to her strengths in those moments, and helping me where I'm not as strong. And also I'm hearing her saying, hey, I've had a bunch of stuff going on. And if Moses probably knows more than any of us has ever taken a peek at Dr. Martin's calendar. Spare moments and downtime are not things that you see in there. So I know when she needs me to lead, that she's asking for a favor. So I'm happy to.
Nice. Yeah, thank you, John. I mean, that's absolutely worth noting that Dr. Martin is very much our chief playmaker, and this is a value that is modeled for us all the time. And, honestly, as somebody who's, of course, part of the team too, there are a lot of things that we try to remember, that we try to incorporate into the way that we behave. And as everybody saw at the beginning, I forgot to check in myself. And, again, in dealing with complexity, and that's a term that we hear a lot these days, a lot of times when people are kind of encountering that word, it can come off as like, oh, complexity is something that we each individually have to take on or navigate or work through. When the reality is we all live in this world together. And so complexity is ours to navigate together. How we do that is kind of up to us. And, it's very helpful, I gotta say, working for an organization that kind of bakes that into the everyday work that we do. So Taylor is back, although perhaps frozen again. Maddie, would you like to add any thoughts to or examples to what it means to be a playmaker?
Yeah, sure. Everything that everyone has said already resonates with me. But the one example that is coming to mind is actually from you, Rico, recently. We have started the digital, I'm going to get the name wrong, Rico. What is the name of our?
The digital strategy working group?
Strategy, sorry. I was thinking marketing. And an aspect of that is putting out TikToks, getting out there on social media. And I have been really struggling this week formulating a TikTok response to this video that we have decided on in our working group. And yesterday Rico reached out and was like, hey, like, do you want to brainstorm some ideas together? Like, we can come up with a schedule to come or to put out TikTok content, and we can just work through it together. And I was like, yes. And that made all the difference. It was so much less scary after having that offer of just partnering on something. So thanks, Rico.
Well, thank you. So because Dr. Martin is the one that laid down our values, how did we do? Like, is this what you had in mind as far as playmakers?
Absolutely. I think, there's a movie. I'm going to be admitting a lot by saying what this movie is. But I think it was an animated movie called Robots. And it was, there was a line in it that stuck with me, mainly because I had to watch the movie like 20 times. But a particular line stuck out to me, and it was see a need, fill a need. And I thought it was so powerful because so many times we just watch people struggle. We become bystanders, and as and it happens all the time in life, right? In the workplace, you're like, oh, I hope they figure that out. Keep going about your business, and that's not, to your point earlier, Rico, about living in an interconnected, interrelated world. That's not the type of behavior that's going to help us navigate the complexity of that interconnected world, right? And if we really care about each other's humanity, and if we're also really practicing collective care, we are taking every opportunity to figure out ways that we can show up as our best selves and support each other. And it's one way that we can do that. And then the last thing I'll say is it's also about owning our power, right? There's a lot of times where things can feel overwhelming, and there's our individual power that we have to be able to kind of navigate the difficulties, and then there's our collective power. And I think being a playmaker isn't just about being an individual silo of excellence. It's about bringing your excellence in a way that supports the whole collective and the mission that we're all trying to accomplish. So I really appreciated everything that everyone said. And the last thing I'll say is it's very much connected to collective care, right?
Yeah.
They go hand, all of the values like come full circle back to collective care in some way, shape, or form. And I really appreciate when we don't fall into the pattern of behaving as bystanders in each other's lives and in the work.
Yeah, just kind of reflecting on what you were saying just now. I've had a lot of jobs throughout my life. None anywhere near as awesome as this one, honestly. And but I did have some good times in some of those other jobs, right? And just kind of thinking about that idea of playmakers. Some of the most meaningful times that I had at work at some of my other jobs were when I was able to bring my strengths, my skills, my sensibilities, and to directly help somebody, right? So even if I hated that job, being able to be there for somebody, that really improves things. It kind of helped stop me from getting into that mode of this is such a grind, like how many years do I have to do this before I can stop? And honestly, like, sometimes you end up in a job where you can work with somebody for a couple of years and not really get to know them. And, well, that's a lot of wasted opportunities. But figuring out ways that we can support each other, in my own experience, has gone a long way toward developing relationships, which is really important to, our way of advancing racial equity. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight that. Moving on. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Rika. So I just wanted to uplift something that Dr. Martin says. She says it a lot, and when she says it, it's something always clicks, and it's the owning your power, and that's huge. A huge part of, I think, in all of this. And I'll just give a really quick example. So, in being a playmaker, we were working with a client, and I had not done my due diligence in some aspects, and it put us behind. And in that moment, there was a lot of fear on my end because I was like, "Oh no, like we messed up." And rather than allow me to simply kind of avoid the issue, she basically said, "Nope, you're going to deal with this," and essentially embrace what was happening and actually go figure it out. And in that, it forced me to look at everything that had happened, take control of the situation, which was owning my power because I had the power to do that. Because before, I had let other aspects kind of rule the way they were going to go. And so in owning my power, it allowed me to, again, regain control. And which I didn't realize and I didn't take into consideration is my other teammates needed me to do that as well, because if I was not doing my best, it was kind of leaving them out to dry as well. So, I had to go back and look at myself and be like, hold on now. Like, yes, this is a fearful situation because nobody likes to fail. Nobody wants to appear as they don't know what's happening. But in that instance, being able to say, no, you know how to do this, and go out there and do it. But you know what? You're absolutely right. Let me go do that. So I really appreciate that aspect of, like I said, owning your power, because until you do that, you don't actually understand. You can't really fully embrace what it means to be a playmaker, in my humble opinion.
No, thank you for deepening that point, Stephen. Our next kind of question that I wanted to address is, what are some of the challenges to being a playmaker? And one of the first things that you said is sometimes being a playmaker can be scary.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first joined the team, I walked around for I don't know, a good couple of months just saying I don't know what I'm doing, right? It's like, I have no idea. And it took a long time for me to kind of just be like, okay, I'm just out here, I'm trying stuff. I'm trying to make plays. I'm trying to figure it out. And the only thing I can really do is just kind of go for it, and so far I think it's turning out all right. So, but yeah, there are definitely challenges to being a playmaker. So I wonder if the team has any kind of insight for the audience, what some of those might be, or what some people might expect as they kind of try to internalize this thing and try to, they say to themselves, well, how can I be a playmaker where I work?
Well, I think, Rico, you just kind of modeled one of those barriers, which is our own self, and getting out of our own way. So sometimes we know what we need to do, or we have it in us, what needs to be done, but it's that self-doubt, or that, doubting yourself. Can I do this? Am I able to? Maybe the team needs someone to step up, and I'm getting in my way because I'm doubting that I can actually do it. So I'm, I'm actually hurting the team by not stepping up, by doubting myself, and by not stepping up and filling that void. So going back to what Stephen and Dr. Martin said about owning your power is, knowing, being self-aware of what you're good at. And I think to that point too, we were speaking earlier about one of our newest team members, Janine. It's like, hey, Janine has this really special skill. Let's make sure we get her connected on this team. So again, I think, us being aware of what we are good and not good at, and how that can contribute to the overall team, I think is one of the major things.
Yeah, thank you, Moses. And I think that connects back to what Dr. Martin and others were really saying about humility, right? So when we're not challenged, it can be easy for us to develop this sense of self that is not exactly in line with our reality. And if we go a little bit too far down that path, then it can be really hard to get back to humility for sure. Or that's what I've experienced anyway. Jennifer, did you want to jump in here?
Sure. So this is I think my biggest challenge with the Playmaker is its connection to collective care and just how I process things. When I feel like I've missed the mark in terms of supporting other team members in their greatest times of need, that is a major challenge for me, right? So when I hear from a team member after the fact that I was drowning and I was like, oh, man, how did I miss that? Like that to me is like a blow. And I'm just like, how did you miss that? And how, like, again, going back to this self-awareness piece, like how can I do better? Like what is it that stood in a way in that moment? So maybe it was me being caught up in specific tasks that were on my plate at the moment, or specific work deliverables that were on my plate in the moment, and missing the critical piece that you mentioned earlier about relationships, right? Like missing the opportunity to check in intentionally, and really keep on top of what other team members have on their plates, what they're dealing with, not only as it relates to client work, but also within their own personal lives, right? And so the times where I have felt like I've missed the mark in supporting a team member and being able to be their best selves, that has been my biggest challenge. Because at the end of the day, like, I want to be able to pour myself into my work with intention and care and love. And I'm sure other team members will say the same. And so to this point of playing off of one another's strength, the more I can be a playmaker and make the room an opportunity for team members to pour themselves into their work in this way that's intentional and filled with joy and care, the happier I am and the happier, we all as a team are, right? Because we're doing the things that we love and care about. So yeah, missing the mark is a challenge for me, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, I certainly feel the same way. Stephen and I have talked about this feeling in the past, and it doesn't feel good for sure. But that piece around humility and self-awareness, it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to use the image of like a Russian doll, right? So you keep opening it and there's another one inside, right? So it's like, for me, I've started to understand that humility is not like a place that I can get to. It's something that I have to keep practicing every day. And it's good that it's uncomfortable, because if it weren't, then I'd just be doing it on autopilot. And what's humble about that, really? Dr. Martin, you seem to be enjoying yourself. Do you have something on your mind?
I'm just listening. Humility is one of those things that is oftentimes misunderstood. And so it's often like, oh, it's a default trait that people just have, as opposed to something that you practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of that, we miss a lot of opportunities to show up and really learn and grow and see other people's humanity fully when we're not practicing humility in that way. It gets in our way a lot of times, right? So I think sometimes it's just funny to listen, to listen to conversations about humility where it's like, I'm practicing humility right now, like I'm being humble. so it just feels kind of funny, but also real, because that's literally what is required of us to stay curious, to stay um, uh, off of autopilot to follow that thread.
Yeah. Thank you. John, did you have something on your mind?
You know I do. So, yeah, I mean, as you were all talking, I was thinking about, you know, the real key to being a playmaker in many ways, and so to tie the humility piece in is, you know, does the person need my support or do they need me to take over? You know, and what is the balance there? You know, do I, when I see somebody who is carrying a burden or they're doing the lion's share of work, you know, what do they need from me? And it, you know, some of us, like me, I'll just use myself, have this default takeover mode, right? Like I'll just go in all alpha on stuff, and it's important sometimes, I think, to really realize that, you know, the person has their own needs, and to your point, Dr. Martin and Jan, if I have the humility to just sort of recognize that and create some space maybe for them to let you know what their needs are. And that's what we find in our work everywhere we go. People have the answers to their problems. They just need the space to be able to process and find those answers. And you know, so as a playmaker, internally and externally, it's really about creating the spaces for answers to be discovered, and then you know, what roles can we play in helping people, either in supporting or leading, so that we can get the job done together.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say in part is that being a playmaker is both proactive and responsive, right? It's not necessarily just one or the other. It's like there's a lot of reading the situation that has to go into it, and a lot of feeling out of things. And that's very different than a lot of the work cultures that I've experienced, right? It's like, this is your goal, you're going to go get it, you're going to get paid after, that's it, right? And it's like, it doesn't matter if you are contributing to the success of other teammates or anything. Like, these are your goals, you're going to do that, and that's that. So for those who are watching and kind of thinking about their own work situations, right? We know that many people and many organizations are now working in teams, you know, just as we are. And so for all of us, like, what would you say is the impact on our team by holding Playmakers as a core value? Now, I'm also kind of thinking about relationships, right? So I mentioned at previous jobs, I wasn't always motivated to create strong relationships with my colleagues because, you know, I was just there for me.
I think it reduces that competitiveness, you know, that in order for me to get ahead, someone else has to lose, you know, and I think that you would see this in some organizations where if someone is struggling or needs help, people might view that as a weakness rather than as a place where we need to bolster each other and help each other, so that, because it's about the collective and it's about how like, none of us are as smart as all of us. And so, you know, rather than trying to point out a weakness from afar, you know, and Dr. Martin mentioned this earlier, where it's easy to be like, whoa, good luck with that, and watch your friends fall, right? It's really about how do we best support one another, because collectively we can get a lot further than anyone can individually.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that I could have done even a fraction of the stuff that I've been able to do with the team all by myself. That I know for sure.
You're welcome.
It is true. John and I partner on a lot of things.
Right on cue.
I think, Rico, to your point, one of the impacts is, I mean, it allows us to see each other's humanity. So when we're checking in during collective care time and we notice that a team member may be struggling or may have something going on personally that may or may not affect the workload, you know, we're quick to step in and see where we can be of help. I think John made a great point about, you know, assessing the situation and, you know, do I need to be Superman or do I need to be Clark Kent? And, you know, providing the wrong response is probably just as detrimental as not providing a response. And then I think just overall to the group, I think the impact is just increases our efficiency. So one thing I love about our team will be, we'll be in a meeting, and if there's 2 or 3 questions, then we'll jump in a breakout room, and those 2 to 3 people can, in real time assess the problem, get it worked on if there's a meeting that needs to be scheduled. So, it also just means being efficient and making good use of the time. So we don't have to wait until we're offline to handle things. We can handle them now. And I think, that being ingrained in the culture is something that I really appreciate here at All Aces. It isn't just something that's on the wall, as our 10 commandments, but it's something that consistently, each and every meeting, 2 to 3 times a meeting, whether we say, hey, I made a play or not, we're constantly helping each other out. And I think it being a part of our culture in that way only helps us out as a group.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. I'd kind of like to also invite the project management team to jump in here because, well, if anybody's busy other than Dr. Martin, it is the project management team, right? So Jennifer was talking about things landing on people's plates. My plate is like a normal plate, but like Maddie and Steven and Jennifer, for example, they have much larger plates or they have more stuff on their plates. I'm not sure. Oh, this analogy is not working very well. But anyway.
I do want to add on the individual level, I think the impact is like our own development, right? There have been plenty of times where there have been things I have been working on and I've hit a block. Either because I'm just all types of confused or it's requiring a skill set I do not have. And so I have gone to Dr. Martin, who hasn't necessarily taken over, but has walked me through and added to my skill set. So I think on the individual level, showing up as a playmaker has impacted me personally because I've walked away with a whole slew of skills that I did not have coming into this role or joining Team All Aces.
No, that's definitely a good point. In the scope of work that I do, I've had to learn a lot of different tools in a very short amount of time. And if I were to look at my skill development or the rate that I was acquiring new knowledge before joining the team, I mean, it's night and day, and honestly, that's one of the things I love about the job. It's like, that's what keeps me so engaged. And Maddie, did you want to jump in here?
I kind of did. I just wanted to add something on the personal development side. I think when I first joined the team, it took me about like 3 or 4 days to work up the courage to ask for help, to be able to say like, okay, I don't get it. I need assistance. And now it's instant. Now I'm like, okay, someone please play make with me. And I think that seeing that growth in myself has been really awesome.
And, to peel back the curtain a little bit, Maddie is one of our project managers, and, she has made a mountain of plays. So just wanted to add that in there. Make sure that everybody knows. If we're kind of thinking about our work and our relationships with one another, right?
Actually, Rico, before we move on, I just wanted to check in with Steven if he wanted to add anything to the project management conversation.
I like how you did that, Rico. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Martin. I appreciate that. As I was sitting here reflecting on everybody else's thoughts, the thing that came to mind, an important piece of playmaking, is that you can't, and you all heard me correctly, you cannot try to be a playmaker all the time. It's not possible because there are things that you're good at and there's things that you're not. And so you have to be mindful of the opportunities that come along to actually be a playmaker, because if you say I'm a playmaker all the time, and I'm speaking from experience, I can do this, I can do that, and then you get in there like, oh wait, I can't. and then you essentially cause more work for your team around you. And the thing about also being a playmaker, and just to bring sports into it, all the teams that win either the Super Bowl or the NBA championship, it's never the team that has the best anything on it. So, for example, like Tom Brady did lead the NFL touchdown passes here, but they won the Super Bowl. Giannis was not the number one player in the league this year, and he won a championship. So it all takes the combined efforts of anyone when it comes to being a team. And I think that is the biggest aspect you said to earlier, Rico, before in other jobs. It was just, I got to work for me, and you can only go but so far when you're working that type of environment. And progression doesn't happen until you have other people to actually push you to be better. Because, like, you know what? I see Maddie's, she's making progress. John's making progress. Oh, okay, Moses, I see you did something too. Oh, hold on now. I can't be left out. Let me step my game up. I got to be better too. And in a sense, it's competitive, but that's healthy competition. And I think every team needs that. That's why, sports you practice against each other, because the person next to you is supposed to make you better. And in this aspect, work aspect, everybody, all the aces makes each other better. So.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Stephen, now that I'm starting to think about it, there is a danger if you have that mentality of I'm going to be a playmaker all the time, right? Like, one, that's kind of ego driven, and that could easily lead to the kind of savior complex that we talk about. And when we're dealing with racism, one of the things that we have to be aware of is that people have to be able to save themselves, right? If somebody else is coming in and saving them, like, are they really being saved? Are they really increasing their capabilities to be able to navigate their own challenges? The answer is probably no. So I love that you added that in there, because I think it's easy to hear playmakers and think, oh, this is just another way of helping somebody, but not supporting them. The difference there being is like help. Like if I ask somebody to help me with the groceries, like I'm asking you to carry the groceries inside for me, right? But if you're supporting me, then that might involve I don't know here, Stephen helping me to figure out a workout plan so that I can carry all the groceries
at once. Because there are no two trips when it comes to groceries.
One trip.
And that was a ridiculous example. I can, of course, carry all the groceries in one trip by myself. So
absolutely,
just want to make that clear for everybody. So like, are there other challenges that we want people to be aware of? Because I think in my experience of trying to really kind of live by these values that guide our work and our organization, I stumble a lot, and I have to try to remember to put it into practice. And it's not automatic, right? So I don't know if people on the team kind of have some thoughts on how people can start to internalize this, or start to like Maddie, you mentioned before that it took you a little while to work up the courage to ask for help, but now it's automatic, right? And so how can we help people kind of get from understanding the concept of Playmakers to really internalizing it?
Are you asking me specifically, or is that an open question?
That's an open question, but if you wanted to start, then
Give me a second.
you don't have to.
Give me a second.
Really quickly, I will say I think the way I think about it, there may be two tracks. So independently, how do I make sure that every day I'm showing up at my best self and helping those that are around me? And then I think the culture in any one company, group, or dynamic is another thing that helps that to happen, right? So like Maddie mentioned, initially it took her time to get up the courage, and then once she had been here and basically the culture became apparent, then it was easy for her to ask for that help. So I think that fostering that culture in a given business or organization is one of the, sounds easy, but also the hardest thing to do. But once you're able to foster that, then I feel like your employees and your staff, it makes it easier for them to be humble, be vulnerable, and ask for that help that's needed.
I want to clarify one thing. it's definitely not easy to ask for help now, but at least I know like the steps that I need to take to make it easier to ask for help. I think one thing that I've really learned is that coming to the situation prepared, or coming with something that someone can help you on, instead of just showing up empty handed and be like, please help me. Just having a start where you can see the gaps that need to be filled in definitely makes it a lot easier to ask for help, but it is certainly never easy. It's still a lot of work.
Yeah. Maddie, something you said reminded me of a quote that keeps finding its way into my conversations the last couple of weeks, which is um, life doesn't get any easier or more forgiving. We just become more resilient. And in other words, we actually learn how to develop the knowledge, skills, and tools to navigate the difficulties of life. Right? And I remix, or I would add to it that it's even more productive when it's done together, right? Like when we are able to navigate that complexity, that difficulty, the struggle collectively. And then the second thing I wanted to say about the question you asked, Rico, which is kind of what are some of the challenges? And I think one of the challenges of being a playmaker, John started to go there, which is, you want to help people, and how do you respect their humanity and their own power, even when they can't see it? And I think as as someone in a leadership position, it's it can be particularly difficult to see people struggle. And so the instinct is kind of something John said earlier, which is like to jump in there all alpha like. But that's actually not helpful to people, right? It's so figuring out how to address the issue, right? Because usually there's a consequence on the other end of the work, and support the person in a way that allows them to grow and learn whenever possible. And it's a delicate balance, and it's part science and part art and part relationships, and really getting to know folks and understanding what their strengths and challenges are, and how we each can get in our own way at different times, and what kind of support we need to get out of our own way.
Yeah. And I mean, getting out of our own way seems to be a recurring theme in this discussion of playmakers. And I think that's huge. And one of the things that it kind of knocks loose for me is, as part of this team, when I've been confronted with challenges, with problems, with issues, there's often been the temptation to complain. What I will say, though, is in holding playmaking as a value, it's helped me a lot to kind of bridge complaining and action, right? And so when I'm like commiserating with somebody on the team, like, this sucks. I really wish this could have been different. And then somebody else says something like, oh, yeah, me too. Then there's a little bit of a spark there. Like, wait, there's two of us. Why couldn't we do that? Right. And that's led to some really interesting conversations that I wouldn't have had otherwise, So I know that we're kind of spending a lot of time, a whole show on one value, but I know that there are a lot of organizations that have a list of values that nobody touches or really looks at. And so our hope in kind of putting this together for everybody and kind of modeling what playmaking is, and also in our previous episode where we were modeling what collective care is that values are really important and really worth thinking out, right? And not just thinking out once when you're laying it down, but as your work is progressing and having other people that you're inviting into the team to think about that and to reflect on it and to kind of help it to make sense in the context that the team is in at the moment. And I see that Taylor is back. Hey, Taylor, how are you?
Hi, Taylor.
Okay, well.
Hey,
We got a wave.
Yes, so apologies to the audience. Taylor did not expect to be traveling today, but due to unforeseen circumstances, this is kind of the reality. So thank you for allowing her to be in the space with us as best as she can, which once again is also part of being a playmaker.
life is real. Isn't that what we say? It happens.
Yes, absolutely. So we are at, we've got less than 5 minutes. So the last question that I like to bounce out to the team here is, in 30 seconds or less, what impact would you love to see in our workplaces and in our society as people embrace being a playmaker? And how does this value dovetail with collective care?
In 30 seconds or less.
Right.
That's
30
it.
seconds.
World hunger is way easier, Rico. Come on.
All right, well then lay that one out.
All right, John, you go first.
All right, fine. So I'm going to totally cheat off of some of Dr. Martin's talks in the past, but this is like, it's all these values are like muscles. You have to exercise them in order for them to grow and to work. And so being a playmaker is, it's about, to Maddie's, point, it's about trying and making the effort and stretching yourself. It's a little bit like an elastic band, like too much stretching, it's going to snap, but not enough stretching, it will never expand to its full potential. So, you really have to work at it and practice it. And we say this to our clients all the time. There's the values you espouse. This is what we believe in. Then there's the values you practice. And so one of our other values is we practice what we preach. And so being a playmaker, you got to practice it if you're going to preach it.
Nice. Who's following John?
No pressure, right? No, I'll go and I'll be quick. One thing I would like to see is people showing up as their best selves. I think part of that, and we touched on it earlier, is kind of embracing discomfort, understanding that it is hard to be a playmaker, but still kind of embracing that role and diving into it. And as far as dovetailing into collective care, a big part of it is taking care of yourself. So if you're able to be in tune with yourself and know your limitations and know what you can and can't do, they kind of go hand in hand. And like I said, I think it'll help with your own progression and it'll help others as well.
Nice one, Steven.
Bam, John. Thank you. Set me up.
It's not a competition.
I would say really quickly, two things would be to, number one, to be humble. So allowing ourselves to be humble and be vulnerable when there's a deficiency that we have. And then the other would be to be aware when you can help the group. So, again, like we've been saying, to be aware when you can step in and help, whether it's a little or a lot. And that can go a long way towards self-care and collective care as a whole.
Nice. Thanks, Moses.
I won't do this in 30 seconds, so I'm just going to tackle one piece of the question. I'm hoping that the impact of embodying a value like being a playmaker and being supported by a team of playmakers is more joy in the workplace. As we mentioned earlier, the more often an individual is able to show up in their full authentic selves and be able to pour into their work intentionally and with care, the better for your bottom line as an organization, but more importantly, the better for that individual and the team of individuals that they are part of. So more joy in the workplace is what I'm hoping an impact is of this type of value.
And it sounds like more centering of humanity. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nice. Maddie?
No, I don't want to go after Jennifer. It's beautiful. I guess similar to what everyone else has been saying, just more self-awareness and more mindfulness. Just being aware of yourself and your teammates or your coworkers, and the ways that you can fill a need. To quote Dr. Martin, quoting robots.
Russian dolls. Here we go. It looks like Taylor might still have an unstable connection. So I think what I'll say is I would love to see people getting out of that mentality of what can I do and reframing that to instead of a defensive or deflective kind of thing, something more proactive. Yeah, what can I do? Right? That's a totally different energy, and it takes us to very different places. And I know it's taken me to a lot of places that I didn't think that I'd be able to go. So that's really my hope for everybody. So thank you very much, everybody. This is
I'm going to add one more thing to the conversation. I would like, if folks were able to adopt their version of Playmaker, I think it will make advancing racial equity and social justice, I don't want to say easier, but more possible. And what I mean by that is it's actually related to something that you said, Rico, that, that reframing of the, well, what am I supposed to do? It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And what can I do? Is like really shifting the thinking of how we show up individually, but most importantly, being able to show up in a way that is connected to other people, right? And that it's not just about my individual, what am I supposed to do? Yes, and what can we do, right, as an organization, and how do we own our responsibility in being better and doing better? And I think being a playmaker at this point, we've talked about it as individuals and as a team. I think for organizations to create the kind of environment that allows people to be able to show up in this way with more accountability, with more action, with more thoughtfulness, with more strategy, with more humanity, with more humility.
Nice. Thank you for closing us out on that note, Dr. Martin. So thank you, everybody from the team, for joining us up here today. It was a real pleasure to have you up here once again. And thank you to everybody who is watching. This is our last episode of the season, but we are coming back in September. So please keep an eye out for that. And if you need more All Aces and more Dr. Martin in the meantime, you can certainly pick up a copy of her book. Dr. Martin, you want to say where that's available?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rico, for that. So you can find my book, We Are the Question and the Answer, on Amazon.com. You can also find it on bookshop.org. And if you go to intentionallyact.com, should you forget any of those things, you can go to intentionallyact.com, our online learning community. And as always, we're sending lots of love, hope, and intentional action to each and every one of you.
Thanks, everybody. Till next time.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah.